Okay, so now let's send our first message. Okay, so to send a message, not a difficult thing to do. So let's create a function that is going to handle that. So in our index.php page, let's go down here where we've been creating a bunch of functions, and let's simply duplicate one of these and make our own. So I'm going to say here, send message. What have I typed? Send message, like so. I hope there's no other send message. I can do this by trying to find. Okay, we don't want to have similar names. So the thing is, this get data is the function we use to get data from the API. However, at the same time, we can send some data in here as well. So it must be it's get data, but at the same time we send something. So we can use the same function and just change this to send message, like so. So we have a different mode now, but we need to collect the data before we can send it. So let's collect the data and just observe it. Okay, so here what we will do is, let's say let me go to chats here, because this is where we are. Let me move this a little bit, like so. Okay, so this is the part where we have our controls, like the input box, the file input, and the button. So this is the text input. So I'm going to give it an ID of message text underscore text, and then message file here. So I'll change the ID of this one, just the ID, to message file. So we may need message file later, but message text is required now. So that's the one we are looking for. So let me copy this, go to here and say var is equal to get element by ID, and that one. All right, so here we have the message text. Okay, there we go. So we need to get its value now. So I'm just going to say alert me to the value, just message text dot value, so that we can see that it actually works. And so how do we activate this? By activating send message. So let's go to chats here and put an on-click listener on this one. So this is our send. Where is our send button? Oh yeah, this is the one. So I'm just going to say on click, an on-click listener, make sure it's not E but event, because that's a keyword. Okie doke. So let's reload and let me type something. Hello there, and click there. Hello there. So we have our message there. This is great, but let's put some disclaimers in here and say something like if we must make sure that the message isn't empty. We don't want to send an empty message. Let's put .trim at the very end. If message.value.trim, trim is remove all the white spaces, so somebody can send empty spaces sometimes, and we don't want that. So if .trim is equal to, okay, so we're just going to say, okay, if it's empty, actually, so let's move this down here. So if the message is empty, we're going to return, meaning exit this function, but we could alert the user and say, please type something to send, like so. please type something to send. So let's give it a spin, see what happens. There we go, and send. Please type something to send. Now if I'm going to put spaces only like this and click there, I'll still get please type something to send, which is awesome. Okay, so now when we have something to send, let's send it. So what exactly do we want to send? Now I want to send a few things here. So first of all, let me push this down because we are adding quite a number of things. So first of all, message. I'm going to say the message full colon, because this is an object we are making, a JavaScript object. This is how it's made. And let's put a comma there for the second item. So we are sending, for now we are not sending a file. So we're just saying the message, and then we need to know which user this is. So message and user ID. I'm going to user ID. Now the user ID is kept in there's this variable here we created which says current chat user, this one right here. So when we click on the user, this variable is given the user's ID, so we can just get it from there, current user. So user ID is equal to current user chat, and let's remove the comma at the very end there. So we've created an object and we've put message and user ID there, which is great. So if we have these two things, we know who we are sending to and the message we are sending. So this is great. And I will put .trim at the end to make sure that we don't save any empty spaces there. All right, great. Now the only thing we need to do is what do we need to do? Okay, so there, send message. Okay, so the thing we need to do is to prepare for the return of this message. So our mode is send message. So let me copy that. So I'll come here where we receive our data. Okay, so at this point I just want to see what I had sent come back. So I'll just do this, and this is going to be send message, right? If the case is send message, alert me to the message that was received, just like that. And then user info, nope, I don't need to do these, I don't need to get settings. Great, so just that is enough. Okay, now we are going to go to api.php, and as usual, anything new that we add in there should have a segment of its own right here. So at this point, I'm just going to duplicate this one so that we have a new line here, and this one is going to be for when we send a message. Now we're not going to include any file for now. I just want to return whatever information was sent. So I'm just going to get this and say echo JSON. How do I do this? Okay, it's still expecting to receive the message inside message, so I will do this instead. Info, boop, something like this. So let me come down here. Okay, so info message, that's what it's expecting. Info message is equal to this. Where is this? Boop. And then we encode it and return. Great, so let's give it a test. Hello there. Send. I get it back, hello there. So it's gone to the server and come back. Hello there now. Hello there now. Awesomeness. So things are looking up. So now that we can send the information and receive it back, it's time to actually save the data inside our database. So to do that, we will include another file as usual. Send message. So the file that we include here will be send message. Everything should be the same to avoid problems. So there we go, include send message.php. Awesome. So I'm simply going to copy, what do I copy? Chats, I think, is more closer to send message. So I'm going to go into my includes folder. My chart includes. There are a few ones here I don't need. Okay, so we want to look at chats there, copy, paste. And let me change it to send underscore message and open it. So here everything is already almost set up. So every piece of information that we send here, where is this? Down here, send message. So whatever we put in this object ends up here as being inside what's this item here? Yeah, so it goes inside find, and so I'm looking for the user ID, which is what I sent here, user ID, and then I sent a message also. So what I would do is, this is great because it checks for the user if the user exists first. If the user doesn't exist, it just return a message that user not found. So once the user is found, what we can do is retrieve the message itself. So right here, I'll just get that out of the way and say message is equal to, so I'm going to remove that data. So instead of user ID, it's going to be message, because that's what we sent here, message. Okay, so we have our message now and we have the user. So let's add a few more things here. For example, actually, since we are going to send this to the DB and we're going to use prepared statements, so I'm just going to say, let's use the user ID, the array here, user ID. Okay, so user ID is already set. So let's use the same array some more. So I'm going to say array message. Let's go to that message. The other thing is we're going to need a date, and let's go to the here so that we can see what we need actually. So we don't need to put all this, but sometimes your actually, let's just go to the structure of this and change a few things here, because some databases are very picky. If you don't send data to all the columns, it won't actually save the data. So what you do is go to the structure of all these, like this one, these that you know that sometimes you won't have the data to put in there. So received, seen, which are the one here, files, and message will always be there, receiver and sender will always be there, so it's these here. So I'm going to say change to all these. Now I want to give them a default value. So this one I can just select no here to make sure that if there's nothing, it can accept a no value. And then seen will have a default value of 0. So as defined, and put 0. Just like received, as defined, 0. Deleted, 0, which is no, 0. Okay, great. So what this is doing is that to ensure that in case we don't supply values in here, it will still save the data. So the important thing is sender, receiver, message, and date. Okay, so there we go. So receiver, the sender is me in this case. So me is my user ID, which is, where is my user ID? Inside session user ID, right there. So I'll come back here and say sender, which is me sending, is equal to that. So there's a message, there's a sender, the date and the sender, and there's a receiver who is in this user ID right there. That's the receiver. Okay, so far so good. So now let's create a query. The query is equal to insert into messages, and here are the values. So what are our columns here? So we're going to insert into the sender, receiver, the message, the date. I think that's probably it. That's really what we need for now. So I'm going to copy these, put them here, but this time I'll put full colons at the beginning there. And then, most important, I will make sure that the variables in the array are matching the values there. So for example, the sender is there, but we don't have a receiver, so the receiver is user ID. So receiver, I will put the user ID instead there. Message and date. So let's come back here. Now the date here is, we're supposed to create our date, so I'm going to say date. That's how you create a date. So year, month, day, hour, minute, second. Great. So everything seems fine, except now let's actually save to the DB. So I'm going to be here and say DB write, like so. And so after all the writing, we're supposed to retrieve our message again and shove it in here. Oh, but we forgot one very important thing here. Now, the thing is, messages are grouped. So if I send a message to one person, let's say I send a message to John, I'll also send a message to Mary at some other time. So it should know that these messages in here are of a particular conversation. And when we start a different one, it should have a different ID. So this is what we forgot to put here. So we have to add one more column here. The column should just be right after ID. Anyway, the order doesn't matter at all. But this one is MSG ID. That's for message ID, and the message ID will be, I think I'll use big int like so. Okay, so yeah, that would be the message ID right there. But numbers sometimes are not so reliable. So I think for message ID, let me use a variable character of 60 length. Yeah, something like that. I think that's much better, more secure. So let me add an index here because we will be using this to search. Good, message ID. Now we need to be able to generate a message ID here once we send this data. So if, for example, we start a message with somebody, Okay, so what it should do is go to the database and search in the database to make sure that I don't have a conversation with that person. So receiver in this case will be the target. So if there is any message where I am the sender and then the receiver is the same user ID, then we should get that same message ID and use it. However, if it's not there, we're supposed to generate a new one. Okay, so let's do that now. But we will need a function that can generate a random a random string, that is.